Assalamu alaikum. Today, inshallah, we will study definition, importance, and classification of carbohydrates. Okay, generally in biochemistry, we will start with carbohydrates. We will know what do we mean when we say carbohydrates. The outcomes of this lecture, you need to know the definition of carbohydrates, the importance of carbohydrates, and the classification of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are widely distributed in plants and animals. Okay, in plants, glucose is synthesized from carbon dioxide and water by photosynthesis. Okay, and stored as a starch or used to synthesize the cellulose of the plant cell wall. So, in carbohydrates, in plants, the glucose is synthesized from carbon dioxide and water by process that's called photosynthesis. Glucose is most important carbohydrate. Glucose, you will hear this terminology several times during this course. Glucose. Glucose is the most important carbohydrate. Most dietary carbohydrates is absorbed into the bloodstream as glucose. Even other carbohydrates other than glucose are absorbed into the bloodstream as glucose formed by hydrolysis of dietary starch and disaccharides. And other sugars are converted to glucose in liver. Okay, this slide, you need to go back to it when you finish carbohydrate. You will understand it very well. Cause, do you remember when we say the terminologies? This slide contains several terminologies as starch, disaccharides, okay, and conversion of glucose in the liver. The metabolism of carbohydrates, why we do metabolize carbohydrates, of course, to get energy. The most important thing in our life is to have energy or fuels in the form example of ATP. ATP is abbreviation of adenosine triphosphate. Okay, and of course, when we metabolize or fuels, even if it's carbohydrates, lipids, or amino acids, we are metabolize these fuels to synthesize macromolecules that we do need generally in our health or for our body. For example, triacylglycerol, proteins, for example, muscles, even actin and myosin, that's building blocks. Muscles, we talked about them in the last lecture, okay, and nucleic acids. Nucleic acids, okay. The nucleic acids, you will have it in genetic course, inshallah, okay. So, we'll generally we metabolize fuels to get energy and to synthesize another macromolecules. So when we say carbohydrates, what do we mean when we say carbohydrates? Carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehyde or polyhydroxy ketones, or the substances that yield them upon hydrolysis. Let's focus on this definition. Polyhydroxy. So there is several, or poly means multiple, okay? Multiple hydroxyl group, okay? These hydroxyl groups generally is polyhydroxyl groups, polyhydroxy aldehydes. You know, of course, you know what do we mean by aldehyde and what do we mean by ketones. So they containing generally polyhydroxy aldehyde, or actually they are polyhydroxy aldehyde or polyhydroxy ketones. Or generally in the life we can find some substances that can yield them upon hydrolysis. Okay, so again, the definition of carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxy ketones, or the substances that can yield them upon hydrolysis. When we say carbohydrates, we say generally the glucose is the most important, or the very important, or it's very important for our health. Okay, and it's the most important carbohydrate for our body. So what is the importance of the carbohydrate for our body? When we say carbohydrates, we do need carbohydrates. Okay, and generally when you buy any kind of some foods or nutrients, okay, you can read it contains blah 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 carbohydrates. Okay, so what's the importance of the carbohydrates? Okay, carbohydrates are very important for energy production. As we say before, okay, we do need fuel or fuels for our life. So we do need ATP. Example, the glucose. The glucose is one of the carbohydrates that can produce ATP. Okay, also for structural component of cell wall and cell membrane. When you took cell, when you studied cell generally, in the cell wall or in the cell membrane, there is biomolecules, of course, that is one of the component of the cell wall of this or the cell membrane. One of these components are carbohydrates. Also, it's very important for glycoconjugates. What do we mean when we say glycoconjugate? When we say generally glyco, this means something sweety. So glycoconjugate, it means something sugary, so containing carbohydrate, and this biomolecule generally is conjugated to another biomolecule. For example, glycoprotein. It's one of the glycoconjugates. So it's containing carbohydrates and it's containing protein. Also glycolipids. It's containing carbohydrate and it's containing lipids. Okay? The saccharides generally containing aldehyde group, as we mentioned before, or keto group. Okay, in this diagram, it's very clear that, okay, it's very clear that the glucose and the fructose. The glucose is containing, okay, aldehyde, and the fructose is containing keto group with a red color. I guess it's very clear. Okay, so just to do kind of revision, the carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehyde or polyhydroxyketone, or substances can yield them upon hydrolysis. Okay, how can we classify carbohydrates generally? Generally, in our life, we can classify carbohydrates into four groups. Four groups. The first group is monosaccharides. The second group is disaccharides. The third group is oligosaccharides, and the fourth group is polysaccharides. When we say mono means something with single or just one unit. This unit here in the carbohydrates, it's sugar unit. So the monosaccharides is containing one sugar units. The disaccharide is containing 2 sugar units. Oligosaccharides are containing 3 to 10 sugar units. Polysaccharides are containing more than 10 sugar units. Okay, so generally the carbohydrates can be classified into 4 groups. Please focus, this one of the most important information in this course. You have to know this classification. Okay, carbohydrates are classified into monosaccharides, disaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. The monosaccharides generally is containing 1 sugar unit. Di means 2. Di means 2 generally. So the disaccharides are containing 2 sugar units. Oligosaccharides, oligo, is containing are containing 3 to 10 sugar units. When we do have more than 10 sugar units, we will call this carbohydrate as polysaccharides. Okay? The monosaccharides, okay, you will study the monosaccharides in the next lecture, inshallah. Thank you.